You walk into the room and the energy shifts. Not dramatically, subtly. A tightening of shoulders, a forced brightness in voices, smiles that don't reach eyes, conversations that suddenly feel rehearsed. You haven't said a word. You haven't done anything. You're just present, fully present. And that presence is making everyone nervous. They'll never tell you why. They might not even consciously know. But somewhere in their nervous system, alarm bells are ringing. Because you see too much, feel too much, know too much without being told. You've become dangerous. Not physically dangerous, not aggressive or threatening. Something far more terrifying to people living behind masks. You've become impossible to deceive. Your emotional intelligence hasn't made you popular. It's made you a pariah. Your awareness hasn't brought you closer to others. It's created an invisible moat around you. Your ability to read the room, to sense the unspoken, to feel what others are desperately trying to hide. It's turned you into everyone's worst nightmare. A human lie detector they never asked for. And here's the brutal truth no one will admit. The more emotionally intelligent you become, the more isolated you'll be. Because in a world built on performance, pretense, and polite deception, the person who sees through it all becomes public enemy number one. They don't hate you. They hate what you represent, the impossibility of hiding. Think about it. When did your relationships start changing? When did conversations become strained? It wasn't when you became cruel or critical. It was when you stopped playing along, when you stopped pretending not to notice the passive aggression, when you stopped ignoring the subtext, when you stopped participating in the collective delusion that everything is fine. You developed the ability to hear what isn't being said, to see what's being desperately hidden, to feel the emotions others are drowning in while smiling. And that ability, it's like walking into a costume party without a mask. Everyone else is in character, and you're just there, real, aware, uncomfortably present. The question isn't whether your emotional intelligence threatens others. It does. The question is, are you willing to understand why? Because once you see the mechanism, you can't unsee it. Once you understand the game, you can't pretend to play it anymore. And that's where the real isolation begins. Let me map exactly what terrifies everyone about your awareness. First, you notice micro-expressions. That flash of contempt before the smile. The tightening around the eyes when someone says they're happy for you. The slight delay that signals a lie being constructed. Your brain catches these microseconds of truth before masks snap back. Second, you feel energy beneath words. When someone says, "I'm fine," you feel the storm underneath. When they claim, "I'm not angry," you taste rage in the air. You've become a tuning fork for hidden emotions. Third, you recognize patterns. The friend who only calls when needing something. The colleague who compliments before asking favors. The partner who withdraws affection as punishment. You see the games, the unconscious strategies. Fourth, and this is the killer, you've stopped participating in emotional contagion. When someone dumps anxiety on you, you don't absorb it. When they project anger, you don't take the bait. You've become emotionally sovereign. And that terrifies people who rely on emotional fusion. But here's what really sets off alarms. You respond differently now. Someone makes a passive-aggressive comment, and you calmly say, "It sounds like you're upset. Would you like to talk about it directly?" Someone guilt trips you, and you respond, "I understand you're disappointed, but I'm comfortable with my decision." These responses short-circuit their emotional operating system. You're not playing your assigned role. You're just seeing them clearly, without judgment, but also without participation. People have built personalities around not being seen clearly. They've perfected performances, fine-tuned manipulations. Then you walk in with emotional intelligence and their tricks stop working. When someone who sees clearly enters a room full of people wearing masks, everyone suddenly becomes aware they're wearing a mask. And most would rather hate you than remove theirs. Here's what happens in their nervous system when encountering your emotional intelligence. Their amygdala fires, not from physical threat, but because you threaten their false self, the carefully constructed identity they use to navigate the world. When you see through anger to hurt underneath, you invalidate their tough narrative. When you recognize boasting as insecurity, you challenge their confident image. When you sense manipulation as desperate need for control, you expose their powerlessness. You've become a walking threat to everyone's ego defenses. Watch what happens. They'll suddenly become busy around you. Create distance, because proximity means exposure. They'll accuse you of being too intense or too deep. Translation: you see too much and it makes me uncomfortable. They'll project onto you. You think you're better than everyone. You're so judgmental. These aren't observations. They're confessions about their own fears. They'll try triggering you into emotional reactivity. If they can make you lose center, they can dismiss your awareness as just another dysfunction. They'll gaslight your perceptions. You're reading too much into it. That's not what I meant. They need you doubting your intelligence, because if you trust it, their games stop working. But here's the most insidious response. They'll perform even harder. Instead of dropping masks, they'll wear them tighter. Your presence doesn't inspire authenticity. It inspires better acting. Because the truth they can't face is your emotional intelligence isn't the problem. Their emotional dishonesty is. You're simply existing as someone who cleaned their own mirror, and the clarity of your reflection shows them how dirty theirs is. Your emotional intelligence is actually about power. In every interaction, there's an unspoken negotiation. Who controls the narrative? Who sets the emotional tone? Usually, power goes to whoever manipulates emotions most effectively. But emotional intelligence disrupts this structure. When you see manipulation, it loses power. When you name the game, you can't be played. And this immunity terrifies people whose only power is emotional manipulation. At work, the angry colleague finds you unmoved by tantrums. The boss's disappointment weapon doesn't devastate you. The victim-playing teammate realizes you're not rescuing anymore. Your emotional intelligence hasn't made you cruel. It's made you uncontrollable. In relationships, the partner who withdraws to punish finds you giving space instead of chasing. The drama-creating friend discovers you stepping back. The guilt-tripping family member learns you're not buying. You've disrupted their emotional economy. But here's the real threat. Your presence makes manipulation visible to everyone. If others develop your awareness, the entire system collapses. So they must neutralize you. Frame your awareness as the problem. Your emotional intelligence becomes overthinking. Your boundaries become walls. Your non-reactivity becomes coldness. They'll reframe every strength as a flaw. Awareness equals paranoia. Boundaries equals selfishness. Self-regulation equals controlling. Direct communication equals brutal. They're not describing you. They're revealing their playbook. Here's what no one discusses. Emotional intelligence can be profoundly isolating. Authentic connection requires two aware people. You can't have real relationships with someone performing. You can't build intimacy with someone who won't acknowledge their emotions. Once you see clearly, you realize how few people are willing to be clear. Social gatherings feel like anthropological observations. Everyone's playing roles, reading scripts. You're unable to pretend you don't see the performance. Small talk feels excruciating when you sense real conversations desperately trying to happen underneath. Surface interactions feel like starvation when you know authentic connection is possible. You become the person others come to in crisis, when masks slip and they need someone who can handle truth. But once crisis passes, they rebuild walls. You're good enough for their darkness, but too intense for daily life. This creates unique loneliness. Needed, but not wanted. Valued, but not included. Everyone's emergency contact, but no one's regular companion. The temptation is to dial down awareness. Pretend you don't see. Play along. But once you've seen clearly, pretending to be blind feels like death. So you exist in liminal space. Too aware to pretend. Too human to stop longing for connection. You understand why others perform. You have compassion for their fear. But understanding doesn't make isolation less real. Emotional intelligence is both gift and burden. The gift, clarity, authenticity, freedom from manipulation. The burden, seeing how few want to join you there. When people realize traditional manipulation won't work, some try sophisticated attacks, weaponizing vulnerability against your emotional intelligence. Watch for these patterns. The false vulnerability dump. Someone who's kept distance suddenly opens up with intense revelations, always when they need something. They're not sharing to connect. They're sharing to obligate. Therapeutic language manipulation. I'm triggered by your boundaries. Your emotional intelligence feels like abandonment. Using healing language to avoid accountability. The reverse Uno. Claiming you're emotionally unintelligent. You're not seeing their truth. You're projecting. Suggesting real emotional intelligence means accepting their manipulation. The guilt trip. I thought you'd understand. Someone with your awareness should be more compassionate, using your strength against you. This is designed to make you question yourself. But here's the difference. Genuine vulnerability takes responsibility. Weaponized vulnerability assigns blame. Genuine vulnerability seeks connection. Weaponized vulnerability seeks control. Genuine vulnerability respects boundaries. Weaponized vulnerability tests them. Your body knows. That contraction when someone's vulnerability feels off, trust it. That drained feeling after they open up, valid. You're not just immune to traditional manipulation, you're immune to evolved manipulation. You see through performed awareness as clearly as performed unawareness. Let's acknowledge what this costs you. You pay in micro griefs, tiny deaths of potential connections revealing themselves as transactions. Constant letting go of hope that this person might meet you authentically. You pay in decision fatigue, choosing between authentic response and social smoothing, calculating truth's cost versus silence's price. you pay in hypervigilance. Once you read micro-expressions, you can't turn it off. You're processing infinitely more information than those around you. But here's what they don't tell you. Paying this price transforms you. Each time you choose awareness over comfort, you strengthen emotional immunity. Each boundary maintained despite manipulation builds psychological muscle. Each time you stay centered when others try destabilizing you, you develop unshakable presence. You're not just developing intelligence, you're developing resilience. And that resilience allows you to stay open despite isolation, compassionate despite manipulation, available despite repeated evidence most aren't ready. Your emotional intelligence is protective. You've built antibodies against guilt manipulation, passive aggression, emotional contagion. This immunity terrifies those who've never built their own. So they'll look for cracks, moments you're human, imperfect. When they find them, they'll pounce. See? You're not so emotionally intelligent. As if awareness means perfection. As if having boundaries means having no feelings. Let them misunderstand. Their need to find flaws just confirms how threatening your clarity is. Because what really terrifies them, your emotional intelligence, is sustainable. It's not performance you'll tire of. It's who you've become. Your emotional intelligence represents revolution. Not loud overthrow, quiet refusal to participate in collective delusion. Every person with genuine emotional intelligence cracks the matrix of manipulation. Every authentic interaction threatens the empire of performance. Every boundary held rebels against emotional enmeshment. You're not trying to threaten anyone. You're simply existing as someone who's faced their shadows, integrated their emotions. But that existence is revolutionary in a world profiting from dysfunction. Your clarity threatens industries built on confusion. Your self-awareness threatens systems relying on unconsciousness. Your sovereignty threatens codependent relationships. This is why they must pathologize your awareness. Because if what you have is good, what they have isn't enough. If you're healthy, they're sick. If your way works, theirs is broken. And deep down, they know it's broken. They feel performance is exhaustion, manipulation's emptiness. But changing requires what your emotional intelligence demands. Ruthless self-honesty. Most would rather make you wrong than face that mirror. So what do? Stop apologizing for seeing clearly. Stop dimming awareness for others' comfort. Your emotional intelligence isn't a flaw, it's evolution. Find your people. They exist. Others who've done their work, developed awareness. Rare, but there. You'll recognize each other immediately. No masks, no games. Have compassion for those who fear you. They're not bad people. They're scared of their own emotions, truth, depth. Their reaction reveals their inner world, not judgment of yours. But compassion doesn't mean enabling. Understanding doesn't mean accepting manipulation. You can love where people are while refusing to join them there. Trust your intelligence. When someone says you're too much, know you're exactly enough for those ready for depth. When they claim you're overthinking, understand you're finally thinking clearly. When they insist you're too sensitive, recognize you're finally having appropriate responses to inappropriate behavior. Your emotional intelligence is a gift to the world. Every manipulation you don't enable breaks the cycle. Every boundary creates space for authenticity. Every truth gives others permission. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's isolating. But it's also the path to everything real. Real connection when you find it. Real love when it arrives. Real life with eyes wide open. So here's my challenge. Comment below. My awareness is not arrogance. Not for me, for you. Declaration that you're done apologizing for seeing clearly. Done shrinking for others' comfort. Done pretending your emotional intelligence is anything but evolution. Because the world doesn't need more people playing dumb. It needs people brave enough to be awake. Brave enough to threaten every system built on emotional blindness. Your emotional intelligence terrifies everyone? Good. Let it. The revolution starts with refusing to close your eyes again. If that threatens those insisting on sleeping, that's their choice. Yours is to stay awake, even alone. Especially alone, because alone with awareness beats together in delusion every time. Welcome to the revolution of emotional intelligence. Population? Those brave enough to see. Will you join us? Or go back to sleep to keep others comfortable in their coma? Choose consciousness. Choose the threatening clarity of emotional intelligence. The world needs more dangerous people like you.